When Diana, Princess of Wales, died in 1997, her sons William and Harry were still just boys. In their grief, they made a simple request, that they could keep some of their mother's most personal treasures. And so, Diana's jewelry, symbols of her elegance, her love, and her pain, was set aside for her sons to one day share with the women they would marry. Years later, those heirlooms would return, not on Diana's hands or around her neck, but on her daughters-in-law, Catherine and Meghan. For Catherine, it began in 2010 when William knelt down in Kenya to propose.
Will you marry me? Marry me.
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
In his hands was not just a ring, it was Diana's most iconic piece, the 12-carat sapphire surrounded by diamonds. The same ring that Charles had given Diana in 1981, William explained. It's my mother's engagement ring because she's not going to be around to share any of the fun, and I thought this was a nice way of keeping her close to it all. From that moment, Diana's legacy lived on Catherine's hand. And when the world watched her walk down the aisle at Westminster Abbey in 2011, millions whispered the same thing. Diana was there too, but the sapphire was only the beginning. Over the years, Catherine received more of Diana's treasures. Diana's sapphire and diamond earrings, once worn by the princes during glamorous evenings, were refashioned slightly for Catherine's style. She has worn them at major occasions, from charity galas to royal tours. Each time, the sparkle was more than jewelry, it was memory. And then there was the lover's knot tiara, one of Diana's favorites, dripping with pearls and diamonds. The tiara had once been given to Diana by the Queen as a wedding gift. For many years it lay silent, hidden in the vaults, until Catherine brought it back to life. She first wore it in 2015 at a diplomatic reception and again at multiple state banquets. Each appearance was a reminder. The tiara that once graced Diana's head now crowned her son's wife, the future queen. While Catherine carried Diana's royal legacy through jewels of duty, Meghan Markle inherited the more personal side of Diana's collection. On her wedding day in 2018, Meghan wore a simple, elegant bandeau tiara from the Queen's collection. But it was later, at her wedding reception, that the world gasped. On her right hand glowed Diana's aquamarine cocktail ring, a gift from Harry, symbolizing something blue and something borrowed. It was the very ring Diana had worn after her divorce, a symbol of independence and strength. For Meghan, wearing it was not just a fashion statement, it was a message. In the years that followed, Meghan too appeared with pieces of Diana's private jewelry. A delicate gold bracelet, a Cartier tank watch Diana loved, even a butterfly-shaped bracelet that Diana once wore in the 1980s. These were not crown jewels, not symbols of duty, but intimate treasures that carried Diana's private self, passed from mother to son, from son to wife. And so, Diana's legacy was divided between her daughters-in-law. Catherine, with the engagement ring, the earrings, and the tiara, carried the Diana who smiled before the cameras, the people's princess in public. Meghan, with the aquamarine ring, the watch, and the bracelets, carried the Diana who cried alone, who longed for freedom, who treasured personal symbols of strength. The world often asks, who is more like Diana, Catherine or Meghan? But perhaps the answer lies in these heirlooms. Catherine wears the crown Diana once bore. Meghan wears the freedom Diana once craved. At every wedding, every banquet, every public appearance, the jewels shine. But behind the sparkle, they whisper the same truth, that though Diana is gone, her story continues to live through her sons, through their wives, and through the treasures that carry her memory into the future. Because in the end, Diana's jewels are more than diamonds and pearls. They are pieces of her soul. The story of Diana has never really ended. Though her life was cut short on that fateful night in Paris, her presence still lingers in the walls of Buckingham Palace, in the hearts of her sons, and even in the women they chose to marry. Diana's spirit, a mix of elegance, fragility, and rebellion, became the measure by which every royal woman after her would be compared, and perhaps none more so than her two daughters-in-law. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. But who are these women, and why does the world endlessly compare them to Diana? Let us begin with their beginnings. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on the 9th of January 1982 in Reading, England. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, built their own business from scratch, running a party supplies company that grew successful over the years. Catherine's childhood was one of comfort, but not royalty. She was the girl from an ordinary English village, raised with values of discipline, modesty, and family loyalty. At school, she was sporty, reserved, never seeking attention, but always catching eyes with her grace. Years later, at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, fate brought her face to face with Prince William. He was the future king, she was the girl next door. Their relationship grew slowly over shared lectures, dinners with friends, and moments away from the cameras. The public would later call her the commoner who waited. For nearly a decade, she stood by William through breakups, media pressure, and public gossip, until, in 2011, she finally became the Duchess of Cambridge. To many, she became the steady hand the monarchy needed. And then there was Meghan Markle. Born on the 4th of August 1981 in Los Angeles, California, her story could not be more different. The daughter of Doria Ragland, an African-American social worker, and Thomas Markle, a Hollywood lighting director, Meghan grew up around television sets and studios. She was mixed race, ambitious, and outspoken in a world that often demanded silence from women like her. From an early age, she knew she would not stay in the shadows. Her path led her into acting, most famously playing the role of Rachel Zane in the hit television series Suits. Meghan built her own career, her own voice, her own wealth, something few royal brides before her had achieved. Independent, confident, already divorced once, Meghan walked into the royal world like a storm. When she met Prince Harry in 2016, their romance was fiery and fast. Within 2 years, they were married, and the press painted it as a royal fairy tale. But fairy tales rarely last. To understand the weight on these two women, we must first return to Diana herself. Diana was not just a princess, she was a global phenomenon. She redefined what it meant to be royal, approachable, emotional, vulnerable, yet endlessly stylish. She had the world at her feet, but she also carried unbearable loneliness. Catherine and Meghan inherited not just Diana's sons, but the expectations the world had placed on Diana herself. So how do the two compare? In public opinion, Catherine has been called the monarchy's anchor. Her calm presence, her careful words, her graceful wave, they reassure the British public that tradition is safe. She steps into events with quiet poise, rarely making headlines for controversy, often admired for her elegance and stability. Poll after poll shows Catherine ranking as one of the most loved royals, often only behind William and sometimes even the late Queen herself. Meghan, however, tells another story. She is adored by millions across the globe, especially in America, where she is seen as a symbol of modern womanhood, diversity, and courage. But in Britain, the press and public have been divided. Some see her as Diana's true heir, a woman unwilling to bow to tradition, unafraid to speak of her struggles, even if it meant criticizing the institution itself. Others view her as a disruptor, someone who walked away from duty. The divide is sharp, and it reflects more than just opinion about Meghan. It reflects the changing face of the monarchy itself. The world first fell in love with Meghan Markle as an actress. But the Meghan the world talks about today is not the one from Suits. It is the Meghan who sat across from some of the most famous interviewers in the world and spoke words that shook the foundations of the British monarchy. Her most unforgettable interview came in 2021 when Meghan and Prince Harry sat with Oprah Winfrey. Under the warm California sun, Meghan opened up about her struggles inside the royal palace. What shocked the world was not the glamour of royalty, but the darkness behind the golden gates. She revealed how her mental health collapsed under the pressure, how she begged for help but was told it would not look good for the institution. She spoke of feeling so trapped, so hopeless, that she considered ending her own life. And then came the moment that silenced the world. Meghan revealed that there were concerns and conversations within the royal family about what the skin color of her unborn child might be. The words echoed across nations. For the first time in history, the monarchy was forced to confront accusations of racism from within its own walls. In later interviews, Meghan continued to expose the odd, secretive world of royal life. She spoke of how every detail, from what she wore to what she said, was controlled by palace officials. She admitted that she had to hand over her passport, her driver's license, even her keys, the moment she stepped into royal life. She compared it to being locked away, not in a palace, but in a cage gilded with jewels. And in her podcast and magazine conversations, Meghan revealed smaller, stranger details. How the palace would tell her what color to wear so she wouldn't outshine senior royals. How she was instructed not to hug people in public because that was not the royal way. She spoke of loneliness in grand rooms, of silence in crowded halls, of the coldness behind centuries of tradition. But Meghan is not the first royal woman to reveal these shadows. Almost 3 decades earlier, Diana, Princess of Wales, sat down for her own bombshell interview with the BBC's Martin Bashir.
Down of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
In that famous Panorama interview of 1995, Diana too broke the silence. She spoke of her broken marriage, of Camilla, of her loneliness, and she uttered the words that became history. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. Diana, like Meghan, revealed the oddities of royal life. She described feeling like a prisoner in her own palace. She admitted to eating disorders, to depression, to crying alone while the world thought she was living a fairy tale. And just like Meghan, she too spoke of a lack of support when she begged for help. The parallels are haunting. Diana and Meghan, 2 women separated by generations, yet both caught in the same silent storm. Both outsiders to the institution. Both adored by the public, yet abandoned behind closed doors. Both accused of being too emotional, too modern, too difficult. And both finding their voices not inside the palace, but outside of it, through interviews that broke the royal code of silence. And in Meghan's latest conversations, she continues to paint that picture of an institution frozen in time. She has spoken about the fear that history would repeat itself with Harry, that Diana's tragic story would one day be hers. And Harry himself has said openly, "I saw history repeating itself, and I will not let that happen to my wife." Odd, isn't it? A palace meant to symbolize power and stability, yet behind its walls, the women who entered it tell the same tale: isolation, fear, and a loss of freedom. For Diana, the end was tragic. For Meghan, the escape was her only way to survive. 2 women, 2 interviews, 2 voices echoing the same truth, that the crown may shine, but inside the shadows are darker than anyone dares to believe. And perhaps that is why the world still listens to Meghan so closely. Because when she speaks, it is not just her voice we hear. It is Diana's voice carried forward into a new generation. Now, when it comes to style, Catherine channels Diana's timeless elegance. She wears gowns and dresses that echo Diana's grace, often paying tribute to her late mother-in-law with subtle details, a tiara here, a sapphire ring there. Her fashion is polished, royal, traditional, meant to blend with history. Meghan's style, in contrast, is modern, bold, and global. She chooses sleek silhouettes, neutral tones, statement pieces. Where Catherine's wardrobe whispers duty, Meghan's declares independence. Both are fashion icons in their own right, but in different languages. Catherine in the soft tones of Windsor tradition, Meghan in the bold accents of Hollywood confidence. And what of the men they married? Prince William, the future king, has grown into a man who embodies both his parents. His seriousness, his sense of responsibility, his sometimes reserved nature, they remind people of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. Yet, when he speaks of his mother, when he reaches out to people in grief, when his eyes soften at the memory of Diana, the world sees her in him. In William's face, the jawline resembles Charles. But in William's heart, the compassion is Diana's. Prince Harry, meanwhile, has always been the rebel. Fiery, outspoken, unwilling to play by the rules. In looks, he resembles Charles, the red hair from the Spencer side, but the facial structure from his father. Yet in spirit, he is his mother's son. His refusal to stay silent, his decision to walk away from royal life, his longing to protect his family from the same pain Diana suffered, all of it reflects the woman who once held his hand through the flash of paparazzi cameras. So the question lingers. Which of Diana's daughters-in-law carries her legacy more? Catherine mirrors Diana's grace, her quiet elegance, her ability to stand tall in the storm. Meghan mirrors Diana's fire, her rebellion, her refusal to be silenced. In Catherine, the world sees the Diana who smiled in gowns and shook hands with crowds. In Meghan, the world sees the Diana who cried alone, who wanted freedom, who longed for her own voice. And perhaps if Diana had lived, she would have loved both women in different ways. Catherine, for protecting her eldest son and standing by him in his royal duty. Meghan, for protecting Harry and daring to speak the truths Diana herself once whispered. Diana was never just one thing. She was elegance and rebellion, grace and fire, vulnerability and strength. And so, her legacy has split into two daughters-in-law, one carrying her crown, the other carrying her courage. The world may continue to debate who is more stylish, who is more loved, who is closer to Diana, but maybe the answer is simple. Together, Catherine and Meghan are the living reflection of Diana's divided soul. And the story of the people's princess lives on through them, in different ways, on different paths, but always under the watchful eyes of history, because in the end, Diana's shadow is not a burden they carry, it is a light they cannot escape. The sons of Diana, but perhaps the deeper truth is this: both women carry Diana, and both men, in their own ways, honor her. William honors her by ensuring his wife is never humiliated as Diana was. Harry honors her by protecting his wife fiercely, even if it costs him the palace. Diana was never truly happy with Charles, but her sons have given her story a new ending. Between Catherine's calm smile and Meghan's brave voice, between William's steady love and Harry's fierce devotion, Diana finally lives the love she was denied. Because in the end, Diana's legacy is not just in jewels or memories. It is in her sons' marriages, one rooted in duty, the other in freedom, but both built on love. And so, Though Diana once walked alone, her spirit now walks twice, in the grace of Catherine, and in the fire of Meghan, and in the hearts of her sons who love their wives more than Charles ever loved her.